Today on CityCast Nashville, after weeks of confusion and public outcry, ICE is no longer planning to put a detention center that could house up to 16,000 immigrants right down the road in Lebanon. Many in that community are now breathing a sigh of relief, including Wilson County Mayor Randall Hutto. He joins us today to explain why he and other Republican local leaders were surprised by the project and why they pushed back. It's Wednesday, March 4th. I'm your executive producer, Whitney Pastorek, and this is what Nashville's talking about. Mayor Randall Hutto of Wilson County, welcome to CityCast Nashville.
Glad to be here.
What the heck is going on out there?
Well, there's a lot going on here in Wilson County, and it's a whole lot because of what happens in Nashville, I think. The hottest place in the country to live. And so we get a lot of the things that happen out here as a ripple effect of what's going on in Nashville.
Well, you just had your own special thing. On Friday, February 13th, an Immigration and Customs Enforcement spokesperson told the Tennessee Lookout that they had purchased a facility in Lebanon to house detainees. The Tennessee Lookout then called you. What was your reaction to that phone call from the Lookout?
Going back, there was somebody that was on a Friday. On Tuesday of that week, I had a phone call from a prominent attorney here in town that said he had got wind of something like this happening here. I thought maybe his conversation probably was from a real estate agent or whatever. So I said, I haven't heard anything about that. So I reached out to the sheriff, and the sheriff said, no, I don't think so. I think if they were going to do this, they would let me know. So I thought, okay, not a big deal there. And so I thought, well, I had a meeting that day. We did Youth Leadership Wilson. We spoke to them here in the county, and all three mayors were there. So I reached out to the mayor of Watertown, which is Mike Jennings, our county attorney also, and said, hey, have you heard anything about this? And he said, no, hadn't heard anything. And so then I saw Mayor Bell, City of Lebanon mayor, and I reached out to him, and he said, no. And then he said, wait a minute. There is a DHL trucking company, not DHS, but a DHL trucking company out of Texas that is looking at a facility here. I bet they've got that mixed up. So we just kind of dismissed it from that point on. So when she calls on Friday and says that, I'm thinking, no, I appreciate this, but, we've already kind of run this down, and it's kind of a miscommunication. There's nothing to this, I don't think at all. And she said, well, let me go back and just double check. And so she goes back and checks, and she comes back and she says, yes, she said they do have one in Lebanon County, Pennsylvania, but they confirmed that they had purchased one in Lebanon, Tennessee as well. And I said, well, okay, I will continue to look. And so we came back and looked at the property assessor's office and the registered deeds office, and we couldn't find any evidence anywhere. Reached out to our elected officials from the congressman level, the federal level, all the way down to the local level, state as well. And nobody seemed to know anything. So that was on Valentine's Day. I think she reached back out to me and asked me, did I hear anything else? I said, well, I really haven't heard nothing. We were just thinking maybe she just got the wrong information.
Right. But then we learned that ICE had reached out to virtually every news organization in the area and more or less told them the exact same thing. Why on earth would they be announcing this without talking to you or any of the other local leaders you just named?
So, probably the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, was that most of the time when companies come here, and, we're in the middle part of the southeast region of the United States, and so we have a lot of companies that come here for Amazon, FedEx, Under Armour, those places to ship things out, because we're in 75% of the U.S. market, in a day's drive. But a lot of times when they come, they don't tell us either. We're the last ones to know because they don't want to have the land price gouged, okay? So the big companies don't tell us. I think the DHS, they have a job to do, of course, to find these centers. And they were looking for 16 centers across the United States, a 1,500 person detainee center, as well as 16,000 detainee centers. And they really didn't want to jump the gun until they knew for sure where they were. But they found a 1 million square foot building sitting in the side of, this side of Nashville, 15 or 20 minutes from the international airport. And so they had really done their job. Now, they hadn't reached out to anybody, to be honest with you. And the lady, I think, that released the information that worked for us, I think she thought for sure that they had purchased it. But then they asked I think, came back and said, no, she has misspoken. That is not the truth. And they let Senator Pody know that, no, they had not purchased any facility here in the county whatsoever. And then somebody else called me, or I got a message from somebody else that said, yeah, but they are looking, and so then that put us back on the hunt. So I don't think they meant for that to be out. And I think, there's a lot of when you let people know that this kind of thing is coming, it does, bring alarm to people because you're talking about putting a lot of people in one area that maybe doesn't need to be in our country. So that does bring some fear. So that's probably another reason they didn't tell anybody, but they had not made an offer yet. They hadn't finished their due diligence yet. And would they have let us know once that happened? I really can't answer that question, but we had a chance to talk with them, and they were very receptive and very understanding of why we felt like this was not a good place for the facility.
Let's get into the alarm that got raised. On February 17th, you walked into the Wilson County Commission meeting and it was packed. I mean, I've seen photos of this meeting. There were people out in the hallway. Tell us how it felt in that room.
So, we had heard, like I said, that was on Senator Pody put out that particular night. It was a Tuesday night. He had put out that they had not purchased anything. And then we'd heard that they are looking. So when we came to the commission meeting, I had heard that there were going to be some people probably coming to speak, and that was okay. I didn't expect 500 people to be here, of course. And so really it was a little overwhelming, to be honest with you. We were not prepared for that kind of public outcry, I think. But, they came and they wanted to voice their opinions, and they talked about lots of things really to us that we have no control over. And even in this case here, had the DHS decided they wanted to purchase that facility, and the federal government trumps the local government, and so the people could have said, hey, look, well, it's not zoned properly, you don't have this properly. But when the federal government wants to do whatever they want to do, a lot of times the local zoning and stuff does not apply. But that group of people was here. They wanted to be heard. And regardless of were they talking about things that we could control or couldn't control, we felt like we needed to listen to them. So for 2.5 hours, we did.
Yeah, the Lookout reported that many of the people who spoke during public comment were against this facility. What were their primary concerns that you heard?
A lot of them, I think, were going off of the fact of things that they had watched on TV. And things that they'd seen about ICE there. I don't know that we had really anybody that brought up, to be honest with you, the things that we thought as a government here, that it was not a good facility, not a good placement, because on our side, we felt like that it's inside of 4 schools, and each one of those schools have daycares in them. I have a daycare there already that's a live daycare that's in the area, 2 churches. And so for us, it was not a good fit there. The second thing that was not a good fit for us was that they were going to employ 4,047 employees. I'm the second lowest unemployment county in the state right now. So we don't have enough workers to begin with here. So they would have pulled from our local businesses, our small businesses possibly, and they would have pulled from our public safety personnel in all 3 cities and the county, which would have just in turn meant I'd had to turn back and raise taxes in order to get our wages up enough to get people to run the jail, which is a federal mandate.
I totally get the staffing thing. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. I assume you also don't have the housing stock to accommodate that many people flooding into your county for jobs.
Yeah, I didn't even think on that part.
Tell me a little bit more about the concerns of having it by schools and daycares. Why does that make it a bad place for you?
So, it's in about a mile. I mean, so we would hope that there would never be a breakout. But again, if something happened of that nature by foot, they could be at 4 of our schools in a matter of minutes. And therefore, the safety of those kids, to me, that was an issue. When you put 16,000 people there and you got 4,000 people watching them, okay? But still, at that particular time, anything could happen. 2 elementary schools, a middle school, and a high school. That's a lot of people to be that close to, could possibly be danger.
If someone proposed putting a maximum security prison, a conventional, say, a core civic facility out there, would you raise the same concerns?
Yes.
You told the Nashville Scene the night of that county commission that you couldn't see a positive impact from this potential facility whatsoever. You've been really clear about your reasons here. Meanwhile, the spokespeople for ICE were not just touting the jobs that it would bring, but they were also touting the millions and millions. I think they said over $800 million to the GDP that the facility would bring. Did you consider those financial benefits when forming your opinion? Did you hear from any of your commissioners that that was a part of their decision making?
I think no matter what amount of money that it could have brought to us, although they don't pay property taxes, the safety of our people is worth more than any amount of money you could put to that for us. And they may bring money to put in our people's pocket that they would count as a positive, but the ripple effect of that, of where they would take away from businesses that would go out of business because they didn't have workers, and the property tax would have to be enforced on the citizens that we had to be able to compete with them, that would have taken away from all that impact. So I think if I would have put pencil to paper, that would have been evened out. But the safety was a number one concern, and so I can't sell my people out for money.
It's interesting. We talk a lot here in Nashville about the way big development is going to come at no cost to taxpayers. But we also then have questions of infrastructure and sewage and all the lines that you have to go to something that large. I would assume that was a concern as well.
So, we have a lot of growth here, no question. And a lot of people want to fuss about growth. And a lot of people will listen to this and say, now you say there's not enough infrastructure to take care of this. I wish you'd have said that before when we got all these buildings coming here. I think the difference here in this one is simply this. Those sewer lines that are out there for that 1 million square foot building that was going to be a distribution center, is there for bathrooms for the truck drivers that come, which could be maybe 100 at best. We're talking putting 20,000 people and on a sewer line. That did not work for Mayor Bell and as well as the Gladeville Utility District that had to supply the water. Now, we did ask those questions of DHS, and they said, we have looked into that. Not a problem. We'll put our own sewage system on site. We'll clean the sewage while it's on site, put it in tanks, and then we'll haul it off. And if you'll let us, we'll put it in your system during off-peak hours so it could fill in. And I understand what they were saying. Same thing with the water. We've seen the water lines coming in. We will put holding tanks out there to take care of our surge when we need it. So they had those two things figured out. Don't know about power, but probably Middle Tennessee Electric would not have a power issue, and not sure about the gas part of the natural gas that was needed there. So they had worked on those two particular areas for infrastructure. But people get the infrastructure really confused when they say, well, now you say infrastructure is a problem. But it's two different facilities. Like you said, a 20,000 person prison. It was not what was intended for that particular area.
So we had all this will they, won't they, back and forth. They're coming, they're not coming. We've heard nothing. Now they're saying they're not going to do it. And then last Tuesday, Senator Marsha Blackburn posted on the former Twitter that ICE definitely wasn't coming to Wilson County. That sort of seemed like that was the end of the conversation. What were your conversations with the senator like leading up to that announcement?
I think there's two good things here, in my opinion. We reached out to the federal people as well as the state people. And I know our governor was a large part of this as well in conversations. I know Senator Blackburn went to bat for us. She listened to us. And when we first had a conversation with her, she said she reached out to DHS because she knew the secretary and said, hey, two things need to happen here. One, you guys need to be talking to the mayors, and you need to be talking to my governor. I know there were some other federal officials that were working kind of behind the scenes as well, because in the Middle Tennessee region, this is an economic engine here, and this could have destroyed a lot of that, which is good for the whole state of Tennessee, not only just our county. So the first conversation I had, I told you about that Tuesday, that before the Friday, they set up a meeting with me and Mayor Bell to talk to the lead counsel for DHS. And he cleared up pretty distinctly that, yes, they are looking. But he listened, okay. And then the next thing happened, Senator Blackburn's conversation set up a conversation with us and the DHS personnel that purchased these buildings. And they listened, they understood as we talked to them. So it wasn't like, we're going to do this, we don't care what you think. So they listened. Our federal people listened, Senator Blackburn and others, our governor, and so the positive that came out of this to me was that, we said, hey, look, we know that you've got a job to do and that maybe this is a part of the administration plan you need to carry out, but let's tell you the ripple effect of this. And they listened to us and they helped us.
And do you believe that this is the end of the story, or is this a zombie that could rise from the grave at some point?
So I really do believe this. Once I heard the conversation from Senator Blackburn, she put the tweet out, I reached back out to the people we talked to that, found the facility, and they reassured me as well that they heard us and they were not coming here, that they were going to look for other places. And I know they do this all over the country. So, and then they put a formal statement out as well. So yes. And I think the only misspoke here, okay, we talk about confusion, was the lady that thought that it had been purchased. And they definitely were close, but they had not purchased it. And that is the only miscommunication that I had found through the whole story.
That's just so helpful to hear as people who could only follow this through the boomeranging in the media. It was quite the time to be alive.
It really was. It really was. And it was stressful. And you had people, shooting emails to us left and right. And then you had all the people that came up here. And as bad as that was, I tell people, as bad as it was to sit through that, it was probably part of the sausage that needed to be made. I think it had to happen for people to hear their voice, for their voices to be heard. I think it was important. I wouldn't want to relive it, but but I do think it was a necessary evil.
Hi, I'm David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, a podcast network that includes this show you're listening to, and also 12 other CityCasts in 12 other cities. And each one knows their city as well as your local team knows yours. So isn't it time we connected them? Don't you want to know how they're tackling their bike lane problems and housing challenges and sidewalk dog poop crises? That's why I'm hosting a new podcast called Your City Could Be Better. Because it could be. Every week, I'll chat with a different host in our CityCast network about what their cities are doing right and wrong, the weird things they're trying, and the surprising successes, so that we can all learn how to make our cities a little bit better. Listen to Your City Could Be Better on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
So Tennessee is now the third Republican-led state to basically say, not in my backyard, to a federal detention facility. It's also happened in New Hampshire and in Mississippi. Why do you think that officials who are fully supportive of President Trump's mass deportation plans are still saying, yeah, but not here to these things?
I can't speak to the other two places. I think for us, it was pretty simple that it was not a good location. I think other people in our state have reached out and said, hey, we'll take it here. We need jobs. We need this stuff, And so I think they've had people to reach out. I know there was a senator or representative one from Nashville that said, hey, we'd be glad to have it here. They said it spoke on TV.
Someone from Nashville said that?
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it was a different county. But he was he is either a senator or representative one for the state.
Then what would be your advice to elected officials or even community members in other areas of Tennessee who could see this debate pop up in their own backyards next?
I really can't give any advice. I don't think. I think for us it was pretty simple of the fact of the location, and I go back to the people that were looking for these. Their job is to find a 1 million square foot building. We just happen to have one empty that's already built, and then one that had an 859,000 square foot building being built right beside it. So it was tailor made for this. So finding those buildings already built for them are probably rare. Because if they had to build one, you're looking at 2 years.
Would you be supportive of one of these being built elsewhere in the state of Tennessee?
I am. I think I can't even answer to that one because that would be that somebody saying you're trying to put it in my backyard, and for me, I just think I can only speak for our place here.
Well, what's been the impact of ICE and DHS's operations so far in Wilson County?
I don't know a lot about any of that, to be honest with you. I know our sheriff probably has had some dealings with that. And we talked some about that. And, his conversations are if they run across people that maybe are not papered to be here. I'm not sure if I say the right word there or not, but they have been dealing with that. They have not really gone out to get anybody, but like if they come through our courts or they're picked up on, by traffic patrol or whatever, but I would have to leave all of that to him. I really don't know enough to I'd be speaking out of tune if I did. If I said what we're doing, I don't know.
You did mention courts. We have heard some firsthand reports of undocumented immigrants who have been picked up while going to county court to deal with, say, a minor traffic violation. These are not the worst of the worst necessarily. What's your stance on that?
Yeah, I have not heard that here. I'm sure that probably is happening. Maybe I do not know that. So I don't know enough to really speak on the behalf of that person there is with a ticket. Do they have a history or not? I don't know. I mean, I know that the conversation, I think, has been with all of this is to get the worst of the worst. But I don't know about the other part.
Well, let's talk about Wilson County. You've been mayor since 2010, and you're in the process of running to keep your seat. And I suspect people out there would probably take some offense to being referred to as a suburb of Nashville, although you do have our only commuter train. I will just point that out.
Yes.
But as our city is changing, how are you seeing your county change with it?
As I said earlier, I think Nashville has become the hottest place in the country. And a lot of times people want to be able to enjoy everything that's going on in your area, but they don't really want to live in the hustle and bustle. So they move to our place, Williamson County, Rutherford County, and they're close where they can get in and out of Nashville in a day's drive and, in a short time to work. So I think, we have grown from that. Mountain Juliet is really close, it's right there across the line. And so I think we had a lot of people that maybe migrated there in the beginning, going back and forth. Mountain Juliet is kind of growing on its own now, becoming its own city. And then Lebanon is just outside of that, and it does have the hometown feel. A lot of business here. It's a little bit larger than Mountain Juliet in landmass wise, so it has a lot of different things that have happened, but a lot of energy there. And then you go to Watertown, which is Mayberry, and that's where I grew up at. And so it's really working its way back. But again, if you don't want traffic lights, you move to Watertown, and they've got to, so the educational system really is the number one reason people move here. So if you want to live close to a great city in Nashville, then you can be here and have a good education system and really still have all the entertainment you would like that Nashville provides, as well as employment opportunities.
Do you think that some of the growth that came out of Nashville led to a different conversation around this ICE detention center?
I think probably we have a lot of people from the West and the North that have moved here. They'll come up and they'll ask, is our tax bill a quarterly bill? And I'll say, no, it's an annual bill. So, they have enjoyed selling their place and moving here. I don't know if climate is a part of it. Low taxes is definitely one. I'm not for sure why all the people have migrated here, but we have a lot of people here. So we have a lot more views around a lot of different things. And I think it's really diverse. I don't think it's just all one way or the other. I think it's really, with this issue here that we had with the 500 people, there are a lot of people there. I think that probably if you checked them, they're probably on both sides of the aisle, but they had the same common goal in mind about, where they thought this facility probably shouldn't be located, but still had beliefs in one way or the other where they support it or don't support it.
Okay, that makes me think I forgot to ask you, were there people who spoke in support of the facility at that commission meeting?
To my knowledge, there was one.
And were they treated with respect?
They were to a degree. It just like if you and your family are going out to eat and they all want to go to one particular place and you say, hey, I want to go to another, and you're really driving that hard, the rest of your people may heckle you a little bit. So, so they were definitely a minority. And in this case, it was a minority of one. And I think probably, respect was on both sides there, but they were definitely passionate. And so their emotion was pretty high, which led to probably some of the other issues that came with that particular situation. But there were a lot of passionate people that night.
I mean, that's the beauty of democracy, isn't it?
I guess.
Well, so you've mentioned you've got a lot more views there now. When did Wilson County implement partisan elections? It was fairly recently, wasn't it?
It was. We didn't used to have that. It happened the last election.
Prior to that, did you think of your county as a partisan place?
Really not, to be truthful with you. We have always, at least it's like from our seat that where we sit at, I serve everybody, and I still do that today. People can check my record and see how I vote for sure. But at the end of the day, when you walk in our office, our goal is to help you. We don't really care how you vote. And, and we don't really do a lot of partisan situations. I mean, we take care of education, public safety, which is, the jail and the fire department and the ambulance. We take care of solid waste. We take care of your roads. We take care of buying your tags and recording your property. But we don't speak on issues of abortion or anything on a political level of that nature. So, so we've never have been that before, but we're probably one of the last counties, I think, to maybe go to the primary election.
And now you're seeing petitions get pulled for candidates across the ideological spectrum, Republicans, Democrats, independents. This election cycle coming up now, are you excited to have all those primaries? Does it fill you with hope for the future? Or are you worried that it could maybe pull apart the fabric of your community a little bit?
I think the opportunity for people to speak and people to run for office is always good, and the views are there. What I've found through the times that I've been here, every 4-year cycle that comes around, once the election's over, regardless of who won or who lost, those people roll their sleeves up and go to work. And I've been very blessed to have good commissions that have said, hey, look, okay, I'm here. Let's get to work. Whether they agreed or disagreed, or they got beat or the incumbent got beat, it really didn't matter, because once the election was done, everybody said, let's go to work and do what's good for the county and do what's good for the people. And so we've been blessed there. And I understand both parties, wanting their party to be the best. I got that. And then you got people that want to be independent and to be neither. And I understand that too, and respect all three sides. I just really am not. And I probably will get in trouble for saying this, but I really don't know a lot about either party, and I've just never really been that detailed and in depth with that. And I always felt like it was my job to serve everybody, regardless of where you were.
You have run as a Republican, though, correct?
Once we had to declare it, yes. Then I had to run just how I voted, because I knew people would look at that. Yeah.
What's the biggest thing you learned about your community through this whole situation, and how will you use it to influence the way you lead moving forward?
I guess I'll get a little spiritual on here probably, but I realize that a lot of times the bad things that come along that you think may be bad turn out to be tools that maybe the Lord uses to push things in the right direction. And that as bad as you may not like controversy, sometimes a little bit of controversy is okay, because you get to get a good feel for everything, and you get to hear what people have to say. I would love for things to run smooth all the time, but sometimes some of the bumps in the road make us better.
Very eloquently put, sir. Thank you very much. Now, I don't get out there a whole lot, but y'all do have one of our favorite things here at CityCast Nashville. You have your own version of, and that's East Nashville Beer Works.
Oh, that's my favorite place. I don't drink by nature, but I love that they got great pizza, great wings. Honey Chipotle wings are awesome.
Wait, you have wings out there?
Oh, we do. Yeah.
Oh, we don't have wings at ours.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you got to come. Yeah, you got to.
That does it. We're coming out.
So when you come out, you call me and let me know. I'm going to give you my number. I'll meet you out there. I'll introduce you to the owners. And hey, right beside it is a trailer park area now, to where they've got vendors all sitting out in the parking lot. So it's really grown. And that was going to be right down from the ICE Detention Center, by the way.
Okay, well, on behalf of beer drinkers of Nashville, glad we knocked that one out. Wait, so can I take the train out there and walk there?
No, ma'am, you can't do that. And that's one thing. You still have to drive, yeah. But we're working on trying to get the train to where it can have on-demand Uber in the parking lot. So that way, when you get there from Nashville, you can get an Uber to carry you wherever you want to and then come back. And the other thing that we're working on is trying to get the train to run. Right now it's 3 trips down in the morning, 3 trips back, afternoon, 3 trips down, 3 trips back. We're trying to work it to where we can get a midday bus run, okay, and then a late night train, so that people can ride into Nashville in the afternoon, go party, do whatever they want to, get on a late night train and come home. So we're working hard at that, and we'll see what happens.
That's some good quality municipal thinking. All right. We will meet at East Nashville Beer Works for a beer in my case and a not beer in your case very soon.
You just let me know. I'd love to show you around out there. Okay?
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Mayor, for joining us.
Okay, thank you. Okay. You want my number?
That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Nashville neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friends? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our CityCast Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Y'all take care of each other.